Hi, I'm Bethany Darwin. I'm the Program Director of the Missoula Urban Demonstration Project, and thank you for joining us for this bread making basics workshop. Our instructors today are Ann Little and Heidi West, and they're going to be showing you 3 different kinds of bread that you can make quite easily at home. If you're interested in the materials, the recipes and such from this workshop, plus a couple more of Heidi's favorite recipes, you can visit us at www.mudproject.org. If you're interested in any of our other workshops, you can look up for them there, or you can call us at the office at 721-7513. Thanks and enjoy.
So my name is Ann, and
I'm Heidi.
And Heidi is going to be doing a regular yeasted bread, and I'm doing this, which is an unyeasted bread. This type of bread takes 4 days to make, so we're not going to make that today. I'll show you how to put it together.
This is the first one.
That's this one here. But it's one of those things that you let sit overnight, and then you bake, and then you let it sit for another day, stuff like that. So we're not going to do that. And the other bread we're going to do is going to be in a Dutch oven. And so we'll go outside. We'll put the Dutch oven right here so we can do cinnamon rolls out there. So if you ever go camping with a Dutch oven, it's kind of fun.
Do you have a fire out there?
No, we will.
Oh,
Yeah. So Heidi's going to start with the Cuban bread, which is a real yeast bread. The cinnamon rolls are a baking powder bread. So.
Okay, so before, there is actually 2 loaves in the oven right now. And before I pull them out, I was just going to talk a little bit about the history of bread. So bread started about 10,000 years ago in the Middle East, which is where wheat is from. And about 5,000 BC, the Egyptians had already figured out that you could make bread rise, but they didn't know anything about how that happened. And it was used as a form of currency, so people who worked on the pyramids were paid in bread. So it was really important. And then the ancient ancient Greece, they really expanded the bread making into like lots of different kinds of bread. They had over 70 kinds, and they were also the first people to make white bread then, as opposed to like whole wheat bread. And to keep this bread rising, what they would do is they would keep, like a mother dough starter, which is the only way they knew how to keep what we now know as yeast alive and doing its, rising magic. And that didn't change for about 7,000 years until there's an exact year, 1859, which is when Louis Pasteur, who we know for pasteurization, figured out that fermentation is caused by microorganisms, which revolutionized bread making because suddenly we could have this yeast separate from the bread, and you could buy it and put it in your flour and sugar and make it rise. So I'll go ahead and pull these out of the oven. Do we have oven mitts?
Oh, I've got some towels.
Okay, that'll work.
There you go. Yeah.
So, and this is possibly the easiest yeast dough recipe I've run across. It's also the fastest. It only takes about an hour and a half, as opposed to your usual 2 risings and 3 hours, and it pretty much always turns out. And it's really basic. It's got flour, sugar, salt, and yeast, and that's it. So we can go ahead and maybe let it cool down a little bit, and then we can slice into it and try it. The downside with this bread is that it doesn't have any shortening in it, which just means it doesn't store as long. So it'll start going stale pretty quick. But even after it goes stale, you can toast it and it's still delicious. And if you want to divide it into 4 balls instead of just 2, they make perfect bread bowls. So I love it. I tell everybody about this bread, and you can also, this is just white flour, but you can put up to about like 2 cups of wheat flour in it, and it will still rise. So it doesn't have to be just white flour. And hold on, I'm gonna grab this real quick. Let's see, and we're gonna heat up some water. Okay, we're kind of starting backwards with the final product. Okay, so when you pull bread out of the oven, yeast bread out of the oven, you probably know this already, but when you tap on the bottom, it should sound hollow. It should kind of have an echoing sound. So, and that is almost a better gauge of how long it should cook. Usually it's about anywhere from like 30 to 40 minutes, but some recipes just have you have it in there really long, so you end up with a really hard crust. And I usually pull it out a little sooner. Okay. Well. All right.
The hardest thing about making bread is not eating all of it
Yes,
right
so
away.
we are going to try this bread.
Ooh.
And usually we let it cool off a little bit longer because it's really hard to cut when it's warm. So it's really soft. So.
It's getting kind of compressed as you're cutting.
Not too bad actually, but yeah, it is a little. And you want to cool it on a wire rack so that it doesn't retain moisture. So, but if you guys want to come up here and try it.
Yeah, we got paper plates right
We got
there.
paper plates,
Butter.
and butter, and I can always cut more.
All-purpose flour, but could you use whole wheat?
With this, because and we'll go over all the rising times, it's a really, really quick bread, and you wouldn't want to use all whole wheat flour because it has to rise very quickly, and the more whole wheat you add into it, the heavier it is, and it won't be as successful. But you can.
Other kinds of flours.
With this one, all I've tried so far is adding up to 2 cups of whole wheat flour, but you can also throw in extras if you want, like, I've done, oh, now I can't think of flaxseed,
Right.
like those sorts of things. And, but this one is just a really basic bread recipe, and because it's so quick, you can't play around with it as much. Does that make, yeah, does that make sense?
Oh, thank you very
If you guys
much.
want to try it, I'll get out of the way.
There we go.
And then we'll actually put it together. So,
How long does it take to make the dough rise?
only 20 minutes in this recipe, which is much faster than usual bread recipes, right? So, because usually it's 1 hour, then you punch it down, and then you shape it, and then you do another hour about, and this one's nice because it's quick. And it's an instant gratification on a bread farm scale.
And it helps if you're a mom.
Yeah, it's wonderful if you're a mom, so. And
It is really soft. It's like a French bread.
yeah.
Alrighty.
So do you want me to actually put
So you're
together?
gonna mix, toss,
Yes, we're gonna mix.
toss. Here's our schedule.
What is why do you have to put it in a cold oven?
That's a good question. Because you only let it rise 5 minutes after you make it into the balls, and the cold oven allows it to keep rising while it's baking. Because if you put it in a hot oven, it's gonna kill the yeast, and it's gonna quit rising.
The whole theme of this bread is quick.
It's quick, yes, it's fantastic. So, I have the directions there, but you just start out with like 4 cups of flour. Oh, and I just let the water get too hot. I'm gonna have to let it cool down.
Oh, I've got some here. How hot do you need it?
Like 120 to 130.
Probably right about there.
Okay. And the warm water is key because it activates the yeast, and because it's such a quick bread. I mean, it's really I didn't used to do this, but I always measure the temperature of my water now. So, so I started out with just flour, and I go ahead and add the salt and the sugar and the yeast. All of that goes in already.
Okay, so I'll let this go to 130,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Because it's just about there.
So, and yes, it really does have a tablespoon of salt in it. That is not a typo.
So this
And
is
2
creme
tablespoons of
fraiche,
sugar.
and this is
So.
goat cheese, and this is an uncooked bread. I mean, an unyeasted bread.
It seems to be in other
Strawberry jam.
recipes I've made, it seems to be only a teaspoon or so, or maybe 2 teaspoons of 1 tablespoon of salt and 2 of sugar.
It
Yeah.
says
Oh.
2 tablespoons on here, so it should be 1.
Yes, it should be. Everybody fix that. Okay, and then 1 of salt.
This should be 1 instead of 2. Okay.
Yes.
1 tablespoon.
I know.
Why does it have so much salt?
You know, I have no idea.
Probably quick.
Yeah,
Must have something to do with the quickness, because it seems like everything else does.
yeah. Okay, so. And I put on there, because usually it says 1 package of dry yeast or 2 packages of dry yeast. I went ahead and converted that to what it is in tablespoons if you're not using packages. So, okay.
So how much water do you need?
I need 2 cups
All right then.
if it's hot enough.
Yeah, I think it's just right, perfect.
There's only not even 2 tablespoons of yeast in your packet.
Yeah, it's like 2 teaspoons and a quarter is what's usually in a package of yeast. So,
Yeah, but they bill it as 3.
So this is cold. This is
They say it's a
chilled.
tablespoon and it's never-
no,
It's cooled down.
okay. What'd you say, it needs to cool down, or it is?
It probably has a little bit. So it's
Okay.
probably about 125.
Okay. So, you add the water, and then you want to stir it and you could do this part I prefer to do it bread by hand just because it kind of gives me something to do. It gives my baby something to do. And it's somewhat therapeutic. I don't know. I love making bread. So you want to stir it for about 100 strokes. But if you want to do it with a mixer, you just let it go for like 3 minutes and let the machine do the work for you. So we're going to stir this for a while. I know, they have a beautiful, beautiful mixer. So at this point, it's really sticky. So we're just going to keep stirring for a little while.
Do you count?
Sometimes.
Okay.
It's supposed to be, I wrote down about 100 strokes, so.
You can kind of tell though, right?
Yeah, it gets really, just turns into a sticky mass. So we're just gonna, and your arm starts getting tired.
Yeah, I switch. Some recipes actually say stir 300 times or knead 300 times and count. And you do that, and it makes a big difference.
Like meditation.
What you're doing is you're developing the gluten.
Yes. Oh, I should have covered gluten. Okay. Do you care?
I don't know about gluten.
Okay, so gluten is what makes wheat unique, and it's a protein. So what it does is when yeast are active, when they're fermenting, they take sugar and they turn it into alcohol and CO2, so carbon dioxide. And gluten is what gives bread dough the elasticity, and what it allows to do is to capture those off gases and allows the bread to expand. So yeah, that's what gluten does. And wheat, it's unique to wheat, so if you start using other grains, like if you're gluten intolerant, spelt, like those sorts of flours, you don't have that same ability to let bread rise.
Right.
Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. And the more wheat flour you add to bread, so say we added 2 cups of whole wheat flour at this point, we'd probably want to increase the kneading time a little, and the more, and if you're doing a whole, like just whole wheat, you'd probably want to double the kneading time. So instead of doing it 16 minutes or 8 minutes, you actually want to do it 16 because kneading activates the gluten. So this one says 8 minutes of kneading time. And if you were to add, say, 2 cups of whole wheat flour, you probably want to take it up to like 10 minutes just to be safe. So kneading is very, very important. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add the rest of the flour.
There you go.
And I usually do it in about ½ cup increments or smaller, just because I have a 2-year-old and she loves adding the flour. So that is her favorite part. So the more times I can let her do it, so I do it. So, and then you want to work it in. And it's already starting to turn into, kind of form a ball, pull away from the edges. And it gets really hard to stir. And if you notice, the recipe says it takes like 5 to 6 cups of flour. It seems to never, ever, ever take the same amount of flour to make the same loaf of bread. So it's something you get a feel for, like what the final texture of the bread should be. So, and over adding flour is probably, you end up with a really dense loaf, and it's not very pleasant. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it out. Sorry. Okay.
Shift that so you can see.
And the flour, you can just rub all the dough off the inside of the bowl with flour. So.
Yeast reacts differently at different elevations. And so if you make this same bread in Seattle or in Breckenridge, it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
And the combination of the sugar and the yeast and the amount of flour all works together. So sometimes you'll find you make a recipe right out of the book and you go, I measured everything, and it doesn't work out. And it's because we're at 3,200 feet. So if you get a cake recipe at the grocery store, it'll say for high elevation, add another 1/4 cup of water, 1/4 cup of flour. And do that because it really actually makes a big difference.
Is there a yeast adjustment to make?
That's a commercial cake recipe, but I actually have a book called Pie in the Sky,
Which I'm borrowing right now.
And what's very interesting is that the adjustments are not consistent. It doesn't go like 0, 5,000, 10,000, 15. I'm fine.
We turn that off.
Off, all right?
Can you talk about kneading and how you knead and
Yes.
get our hands in there?
Yeah, I was gonna get it to
Go ahead.
what it should feel like. When I have my friends come over and make bread with them for the first time, the tendency is it seems to be just to use your fingers to knead, and I advise against that because that's just a mess. So you really want to use the palms of your hands, especially when the dough is a little stickier. If you use your fingers, you're just gonna end up with a glove of dough. So, and then as soon as this is just a little bit more worked, I'll let you guys feel it. And it should really, especially since we use the warm water, it feels warm and it really should feel alive and be elastic, and it kind of almost pushes back. That makes like it closes up. And I don't know. So in this part,
Tell them how you turn and push.
Well, I don't know. It's almost like a seashell. Like you're almost, like you rotate it and then you push, and like a swirling motion almost. And we're getting sticky.
If you've ever handled
Yeah.
And you worked clay to get the air pockets out. It's the same sort of thing. You're kind of pushing against it, but curling it into itself so it has
Yeah.
a shape sort of like a ram's horn.
Except you can't see it on bread. On clay you can see it. You end up with swirls on both sides, so. Okay.
And again, you're developing the gluten. It's the same thing, that springiness, the stretchiness that holds the bread together. Because if you made this out of like rice flour, you'd have crumbs. It wouldn't hold together at all. You'd have to like pack it together and that would be it. So.
So if you don't need it enough, then it's just denser?
Yeah.
It's not, it's not as smooth and it's not as light. Yeah, it's denser. Yeah.
So is the idea to add as little flour as possible while you're kneading it? Just or
I just add a little bit of, well, I just add enough while I'm kneading it to keep it, like it's not really sticking to the surface.
Yeah.
So that's how you want to have it. But if it's still sticking to your hands a bit, you just dust it. But you definitely don't want to add too much flour because it's fine. You can't really add water back in. Hi, Ivory. And, all right. Hi. Are we making more bread? Yeah? Okay. All right, so this needs to be kneaded 8 minutes. So if you guys want to maybe wash your hands and give it a try.
So Anne brought up a really important part, the density of the grain itself, starting from bleached flour to something as heavy as grant's meal, which is everything, all the way to rice flour, which is probably
Nothing.
amaranth. So what about the grains? Remember living in Europe? Like, they had lots of terms for different grindings of wheat.
Right, well,
Stuff called wheat. One grain.
well basically, when they make whole wheat flour, they put it through a big giant sieve and all the big particles are sifted out first, like your, what is it? Like your bran and your germ and all, which is in whole wheat flour, all of that's still there. But, or most of that, I always sift out the gram if I'm grinding my own flour, just because it doesn't keep together as well if you leave it in. So, but yeah, as I said, the more of those big particles you have, the longer you're gonna have to knead it. So, you wanna give it a try? What's your name? Cat, okay, yeah, so you just wanna knead it and just kind of push it forward with the palms of your hands and use your fingers to like turn it over. So I don't know if you've kneaded bread before, but so like that. You just push it away from you and then get your like whole body into it. It's it makes you sweat after a while. Yeah, I do. Once and some people, get real good. Yeah. It feels kind of warm and it's not really sticky anymore. Yeah, I don't know, I can't really describe it. Like it's a little bit tacky, but it doesn't actually stick to you, if that makes sense.
You just push from the...
Yeah, so if I kind of grab it on these outside edges and then bring it in and then just push. And it really helps if you use your whole upper body to push. Not
really have to keep it.
Yeah. And after a while it starts something, it's a repetitive motion then.
Oh, you didn't get any?
It's nice. It feels good.
Here, let me get you some butter.
And I take turns. I do it for a while, and then Ivory gets to do 10 pushes.
It's like French
So this spread's 8 minutes, but then if you have more whole wheat, you want to do it longer.
It's just
Can you
yummy.
tell by feel or
Just
do you
mush
really
it.
have to count?
I set a timer, and I just do it. You wanna touch it?
Right.
Yeah, so. And you can take breaks, you know. I do.
I'll just use that, because
So,
she didn't use it. She used this stuff.
you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And kneading is really, really, really important. So, but if you have a dough hook, you technically, I get nervous. I've tried it on my KitchenAid before, and you're supposed to be able to make bread on a KitchenAid, but it really, really starts to get hot after a while, and sometimes, especially when it's new, then your KitchenAid starts to get really stinky.
It's a KitchenAid.
It's one of those stands, like
A baby
a
one of those.
baby one of those, which this one is probably, they probably use it to make bread.
And they
But-
make great, the kitchen
Yeah.
prices that you can.
Like mine is
Kind of
the-
like 12 comes up.
Yeah.
They're intended for it, but they're
Like
monsters.
mine is supposed to be able to make like a bread recipe, but I chicken out. I'll just use my hands. So, Marcy, you want to touch it? I know you can make bread. She makes very good pizza dough.
But it's it says like made it like 10 strokes. It's not really not.
Yeah, you could use it for pizza dough, but you'd want to roll it out really thin and then like bake it like 10, 15 minutes before you put any toppings on it. I mean, this is really versatile. You could,
That's a good call. A lot of people
Yes.
make the mistake of throwing all the things on the,
yeah, beforehand. Well, especially since this,
you gotta make it.
yeah. So,
Just put olive oil on the edges, right?
yeah, so
Very well.
anything. Yeah. Does anybody else? James, you want to knead the bread?
Because they're all-
How many? I didn't look at the time. We'll just say after everyone's had a turn, it'll be about 8 minutes.
I threw a whole cup of flour on this. It's still really hot.
No, this one you can't go because it's a wet rise. I mean, it's a quick rise.
Oh, that's the 20-minute one.
Oh yeah, you don't want to get it too floury. So
Pretty wet.
That's the thing is no one because it feels sticky.
yeah, it's just a, but it doesn't actually like stick to your hands. Like,
How many
Big.
cups of beer did you use? Flour out there?
This was 5 and a bit. So
It's in your recipe.
yeah, it says 5 to 6.
Oh,
And I find that it usually is closer to the 5 end than the 6 end. So, okay, what we're gonna do is, are we going outside next or
not yet.
putting? Okay.
We're gonna put
So
this
what we're gonna do
together.
is we're gonna stick it back in this bowl. And just put a little bit of oil in the bowl so it doesn't stick after it's risen.
I'll just use that. No, it's fine. It's fine.
So what I do is I just use the dough itself to spread out the oil and then flip it over. And then we're gonna let it sit for 20 minutes. And this one, a lot of bread says, you know, let it sit till it doubles in volume. This one is not going to get quite that large because it's only 20 minutes, so. But it'll be pretty, I mean, it'll be substantially larger, so this is what it's now. And we'll see it in a little bit. Okay, you guys have any other questions?
How critical is the temperature for this for it rising?
I usually just set it, like our house is probably about this temperature, and I usually just set it like on the stove, not with the stove on because it goes into a cold oven, or on top of the fridge and let it sit, so.
So
Just room
no,
temperature,
just
yeah.
right.
But if you want to be, if you want to be a stickler, like you could, some like food dehydrators have a bread rising setting, which I think is like right at 120
100 to 100.
degrees, like somewhere around
Yeah.
there. And that
Just
would
to keep the
probably,
yeast warm.
yeah, and that would probably increase your rising time. So if you have access to something like that, why not use it? So,
On the
but,
floor in front of the wood stove.
yeah,
Yeah, that's-
there.
Or
So,
how about, I've seen some dry bread recipes that says you have bread pans like boiling water underneath it and then you
Oh, yeah.
stack the dry bread.
yeah, you actually bake this one with water.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Keep it warm though. The
it
temperature
actually-
helps a little bit.
Yeah, but this one, the water also helps make like a nice crunchy crust on the outside. So, let's see. Some recipes, you know, they want you to spray water on it, whatever. But
Okay?
are we
So
gonna?
did you say, when you were talking about wheat flour, so on something like this, could you substitute half of the flour for wheat and
I haven't gone
any
as
other
far
changes?
as half,
That should be done.
but 2 cups are, like 1 cup is totally, like, it works great. 2 cups works great. And if you want to be daring, you could probably go up to half. But because it's such a quick rise, I don't know if it might not give you the end result you want if you go further than that. So, but we are gonna send home a whole wheat bread recipe with you guys. It's a whole wheat walnut bread and a Swiss cheese bread. And I've made them both since I've moved up here. I lived in Oklahoma, which is, you know, flat and only 600 feet above sea level, and they both work great here. So you guys
So the
can
altitude,
try them.
as far as you know, the altitude's like not that high.
Not
Good.
dramatically. No, these work great the way I wrote them down. So I made some slight tweaks to them, a little bit more moisture. So, all right,
Okay.
I'm gonna wash my hands.
Okay. The next one we're going to do is on the second page there, or in the back, and it's the it's a baking powder bread, which, like the yeast creates a carbon dioxide, and so does the baking powder. It's the chemical reaction. So baking powder will also raise the flour. And what you've got here is a Better Bisquick recipe, which I stole right off the net, and I've used it several times, and it works great. And the best thing is, if you're using this recipe to go camping, all you have to do is add water. You don't have to have anything special, you just add water to it. So I'm just going to go straight through what it says there, and it just basically, you take all those ingredients and you dump them in the bowl and you mix them up, and that's the end of that. The one thing that I do before is I mix the baking powder in with a little bit of flour in the sifter, because baking powder has a tendency to kind of glump up, and if you run it through the sifter, it breaks it up for you. So this is just, it says 4 cups of whole wheat flour, and I'm just going to dump that in there. I already pre-measured it. And if you're going to do this, and if you think you're going to take this recipe camping, one of the tricks of camping is measure everything and put it in Ziplocs ahead of time so that you don't have to mess with it. This is 3 tablespoons of baking powder. And couple little tips about sifters. Never wash your sifter. It'll rust. Just get most of the flour out of there as much as you can and set it in a bowl, or what I actually do is I've got a round lid like this that I set in my cabinet and I just put it down. But you'll ruin it if you wash it. It's like cookie cutters. You know, you never wash your cookie cutters, you just wipe them off. And this is a nice sifter, but I got it because I didn't want to ever have to buy another one. And it's got 3 meshes in there, but you can get just the ones that go around like that. They work fine. Don't have to get anything special. Okay, so 4 cups of whole wheat flour, 1.5 cups of soy flour. What that does, what the soy flour and the wheat flour does, is it gives you a lot of protein. So this is a pretty high protein mix. Brewer's yeast, 1/2 cup. And if you don't like brewer's yeast, make it less, because you can actually taste the brewer's yeast in here when you cook it up. And because this is a powder, you have to use powdered sugar, not powdered sugar, but dry sugar. You can't use honey or molasses in this, because if you're going to be storing it, that won't store very well. And 4 teaspoons of salt, and 2 cups of wheat germ. And what I usually do is I stick this in a big plastic bag or another big plastic container, and I stick it in the back of my fridge. And it can just live there, or you can put it in a cool part of your house because it's flour, and the natural oils in these organic and whole wheat grains, the grain will go off if you let it get warm. So if you mix this up in the summer, if you're hiking in or you're doing some car camping or something and the car's warm, a couple days isn't going to make a difference, but a couple weeks is. So with this, you just keep it cool, and it'll probably, I mean, they say, yeah, it lasts up to 6 weeks. I use it before 6 weeks,
Yeah.
so, I never have to worry about it. And I've used this to make things like cheese biscuits, just quick biscuits for dinner or something like that. And you just mix it up. That's it. Nothing very exciting. What we're going to do is we're going to make cinnamon rolls with this. And I brought measuring cups. And when you're making bread, it's not quite as critical. But when you are doing a lot of baking, when you measure, you want to scoop. They say actually don't scoop. They say pour it in and then make sure you've got a cup. I'm not that careful when it's bread, but if you're doing something like pastry, it makes a huge difference. Big, big difference.
Is it better to use the dry measure cups than the wet measure cups?
Yeah. You're going to end up shaking it and kind of eyeballing it, shaking it some more and eyeballing it. It's just a little faster. And it doesn't make any difference if it's glass or metal or plastic. And that's one of the things with like Heidi's bread. She's got that in her bread rising in a ceramic dish, and I found that's the best thing to use for baking bread. Metal, plastic, one of the things about bread is keeping it warm, and the ceramic will hold the heat. So that's kind of important. So what we're going to do, we're going to mix up the dough for the cinnamon rolls. We're going to roll up all the ingredients for the cinnamon rolls. Then we're going to go outside right here, and we're going to start the Dutch oven going. And so you're going to learn how to use a Dutch oven. And that's actually pretty easy, and once you do it, it's a lot of fun. There's a whole group of crazy black pot cookers around the country, and there's clubs and stuff. They make everything, and sometimes they take the Dutch ovens and they like stack them up, and it gets kind of nuts, but that's all right. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so what we've got is
Not chopped walnuts, what do you think?
no, they're chopped. Sorry. Okay, 3 3/8 of this stuff.
So on the ingredients for this, the grains and the wheat germ, you get that all in bulk, you get that at the food store?
Yeah, I get them at Good Foods. I try and get organic as much as possible. And I think everything here I got at Good Foods or at the co-op.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the wheat flour, what about, let's talk about the difference in like red and white for spring or winter, whatever your wheat.
Usually I use hard winter, but yeah, because I think the reds are softer, I think.
I never been
Yeah.
We can count it a little bit different.
Yeah, I can't tell you, I don't know. I know there is a bit of a difference, what you use it for, if you're using it for pastry, or if you're using it for bread baking, or if you're using it for thickening sauces. I mean, that would be different, but I don't know the difference between them. So, you could probably go online and read up on that.
The French wheat isn't exported. The only reason there's French bread in France is they don't export their beautiful wheat.
Oh, is that right?
The gluten count is the highest in the world.
Wow, oh.
Yeah.
Is it like against the law for them to do that or something, or it's just a common practice?
Do it.
Huh, okay.
Many have tried, many have
Ah. Okay, so, oh, hello. Got a soccer game going on. Alrighty. So when I go camping with this stuff, I would usually put my 3 3/8 cups of the mix in a bag, and then I'd have another little bag because you saw how Heidi was kind of adding flour in, and we're going to do the same thing with the cinnamon rolls. And what the directions say is if you're camping, find a flat place to spread your dough out, and you can just literally take a tea towel, put it down on the ground, and maybe some foil or something, and work right on that. I mean, if you're really out there in the middle of nowhere, what I need is just a place to flatten the dough out so I can roll it up into cinnamon rolls. Usually what I do if Pat and I are going, I unscrew the tabletop in the inside our van and take it outside and use that. It's a little difficult because there's a fitting on the bottom of the table, but it works. Okay, so we need a cup of water. Excuse me, I'm gonna run over here and grab some cold water. Whoa, splodge. Now, one of the things it mentions in the recipe there is if literally you are taking this on a camping trip, don't turn your back on it. The camp robbers will get it, the raccoons will show up, the squirrels will come out of the trees. It's been known to happen. And all of a sudden you look over and here's a gray jay eating your raisins or something like that. Okay. So this just looks like this right now. And I'm just going to kind of roll it into a dough and put it here on the table. And this we don't have to knead or anything because we really don't need to develop the gluten in here the way you would with a raised bread. The baking powder is going to take care of that for us. So just going to kind of form it into a ball. And last time we did this 4th of July at Beacon Rock State Park with some friends. You know, and if you can make cinnamon rolls for Sunday breakfast out in the middle, yeah, it's kind of a treat, so it's nice. Now these aren't as poofy as, say, Bernice's a Le Petit or something like that, but they, you know, starving people will eat anything.
No, most bakeries just refer to use bleached flour.
Oh yeah. Well, that's one of the things, like you're never going to find wherever that went, that Dutch rye in town. Nobody will make that. It's too expensive to make because it takes so long. And I talked to a couple of people who work at the bakeries and stuff and said, why can't we find this dark bread? And he goes, because, you know, nobody wants to make it because it takes too long. So we just kind of, I'm only doing this to kind of mix it up a bit more. And then what we're going to do, peel it off the table, is we're just going to pat it out until it's kind of a square. And you could use a rolling pin for this, but I don't take a rolling pin camping. So at this point, I'm just going to let it sit. And it'll kind of poof up. And we're going to run outside and start working on the Dutch oven thing. All right, great, thank you. So, a couple other people come out. Oh, thank you. And Marcy's getting the cookie sheet. I don't want to put it right here on the ground because the charcoal briquettes make kind of a mess. So when we're camping, I usually put it in the fire pit and do that. That works. But this is a standard issue Lodge Dutch oven.
Are there different sizes?
There's lots of different sizes. Thanks.
Is this a smaller size?
This is a smaller size, yeah. This is a 10, and most often people get a 12, but I am usually only cooking for 2 people. If you're cooking for a crowd, you might want to, they get huge.
Oh, really?
You can get really big ones, and the
Lift it?
sure, yeah.
I mean, oh, yeah, that's
Yeah, it's cast iron, yeah. It's US made. And the dude ranches around here and the guys who take, horse trips and stuff, they have a whole system where they do Dutch oven cooking and stuff like that. So it's nice because you can use the lid for cooking on as well. And this is seasoned. I bought it seasoned. And when you wash it, you don't use soap. You just use hot water, scrub it out good with a scrubber, and call it done. And the way this works is I'm going to put it on here, but for right now, we're going to start the charcoal. And because heat rises, you put more briquettes on the top of this thing than on the bottom. And there's a method by which you can control the heat in there by the number of briquettes that you use. So I'm going to start with about 25 briquettes. And when I got this thing, I went, I know I'm going to use it, and I went to the trouble and I got myself gloves and tongs and all this fancy stuff because it just makes life so much easier. So yeah. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18. So, this little handy dandy guy, when this is burning hot, you don't want to touch it, so you can pick it up. You can also lift the lid up like that, and this little gizzy is for putting your lid on. And you can also turn this over, put that on top of the coals, and use that for frying if you want to.
Other way out for that.
Yeah,
Bottom bit.
yeah. Right. So we got all this stuff. And one of the things that you do while you're cooking is you come and you turn your pot on the coals. So what we're basically going to do, we're going to put about 7 or 8 coals underneath it, and then we'll put about 12, 14 on top. And that little charcoal briquette gizzy, okay, oh gosh, who needs it? Well, you don't have to have it, but again, if you are limited time or limited space, you crumble this up, you put it underneath, and you light it. And you remember to take your matches. There's a story behind that. Somebody, somewhere, once upon a time.
Couldn't have been me.
Here we go.
We borrow the.
I have my matches. Go ahead, light it. Pyromaniac. Here we go.
That little piece of paper.
Yeah, just enough. It'll catch. We got a nice breeze. So you let that.
You can pick it up. And
There we go. It's going.
Is it right?
Yeah, it's fine. Good.
All right.
That should do it. Just set her back down. That's it. Okay. So that's it, and we're just gonna let that, whoops, we're just gonna let that sit. And the people in the neighborhood and the fire department and the county is gonna come get us for inversion, and air pollution, and gosh, who knows what all. So now we get to go back inside and finish up the cinnamon rolls.
So earlier we left this sitting on the pan and the bottom of it got really soggy.
Oh,
which is why you
I'm
don't want
sorry.
it sit. No, it's fine. It was my fault.
Oh dear.
But, you know, I don't know if we have any racks. So we're going to finish the yeast spread real quick, or I can wait a second. Yeah, it almost did double in bulk, so it did grow. See. Beautiful, beautiful loaf of bread. And it's really, let's see, it's gonna get greasy. So you just dump it out and it should come out real easy. And what, could you hand me that knife that's over there? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so you want to cut this in half. And you're going to form it into 2 balls. So this is really about a half. And you're going to squeeze out all these air bubbles. And what I do is I kind of turn the outside under. But that's just how I do it. I used to work in a bakery, and that's how they used to form rolls, I guess, before they got a roll cutter, which made life much easier. And I knead a little bit. And you want to try and minimize the seams on the bottom, just because sometimes they crack. So you want to try and get it to stick together. Okay, and then let me grab this. Not too hot anymore. And if you were, I just used this, so it still has some grease on it, but you'd want to grease your cooking tray. So we're just gonna set these on there. There's one. And then if you were gonna make bread bowls, which this dough lends itself to very well, you'd cut it into 4 and then just make them into balls. And you'd want to reduce the cooking time a little bit because they're smaller, obviously. Okay, so here we got 2. And you can leave them plain or stick some like sesame or poppy seeds on top. And let's see.
Can you write your initials on the top?
You probably could. And this bread, because it's such a fast riser, you want to cut slits in the top. And what that does is, if you didn't cut the top of it, it most likely would end up really lopsided. And it just allows, while it's baking, some of that carbon dioxide to escape and gives you a nice uniform loaf. So we're gonna crisscross it, and you can either do an X or you could do like a tic-tac-toe pattern, or you just want it to be cut in the top. And then let's put this back. Marcy, could you give us just some cold water? And then, so just some. So, and to get the poppy seeds to stick, if you want to put seeds on top, this is an extra step. You don't have to do it. You just put water on top. Oh yeah, you can. I was just cooling the oven back off.
Do you ever use
I have. It depends. This one doesn't call for it, but you could also do an egg wash. But it's gonna look a little different. It'll be a lot deeper brown. It'll give us like a really deep color. And then this will just make these stick.
It's just like cold water.
Yeah. But yeah, or if you do an egg wash, the way I do it is I take an egg, I separate it, just use the egg white. And you take 1 egg white and add a tablespoon of water and mix it and then brush it on. So. And then we stick it in a cold oven, and then we're back to where we started. And it'll bake for about 40 minutes. So, or 30 to 40 minutes. And it depends. Every oven is different. So my oven at home, let's see, where is it? 375. So my oven at home might cook it faster than this one. It just depends. You gotta know your oven, so. All right, turn it back over to Anne.
Okay, back to cinnamon rolls. Yeah, the directions say brown sugar and cinnamon, and I just mix those together in a bag like this, so it's all pre-mixed. This, after it's been sitting here for a little while, just put some butter in, kind of blob butter around. And this is not a fine art. This is like quick and dirty, and it works just fine. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the other half of this butter, and we're going to put it in the bottom of the Dutch oven and melt it. And because what we'll do is we'll put the butter in the bottom, we'll line the Dutch oven with foil. We're putting sugar in that Dutch oven, and getting sugar off that Dutch oven is a trick. So we don't want to get any sugar in the bottom, or as little as possible. So we line it with foil, put the butter in, let it melt, sprinkle in nuts and raisins and the brown sugar, and then we put the cinnamon rolls on top of that, put the lid on, let it cook. But before we do that, we're going to put about half of the raisins in here, or as much as you like. This is totally optional. You can, these actually are currants that I'm using because that's what I had. Pardon?
Currants have more vitamins than raisins.
Well, good. And again, we've got walnuts, and I pre-chop the walnuts so that you don't have to try and chop walnuts up on the trail or out in the woods somewhere. And again, you can put as much or as little of these in as you want. You want to leave some room around the edge. You don't want to put this filling all the way to the edge, because you want that edge to kind of stick when you pull the cinnamon rolls out of the Dutch oven, so they don't unwind on you, so to speak, and that'll be fine. So we just kind of have this like this, and you just take this edge and you roll it up just like this. And on this last edge here, take a little bit of water along that edge, and it'll help it stick when we get the thing cooked. And I'm just kind of pushing down on that edge, and stuff is going to fall out the ends, and that's fine. Okay, so I'll just put these in here for now, and I'm just going to take and slice them, and you'll have pinwheels. Now the two little end ones aren't always the world's most beautiful things, but depending on how much you're making, how big your Dutch oven is, I just kind of eyeball these to kind of think how much is going to fit in the bottom of that pan. And I'd say like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 10. So cut this into 10. And they will rise kind of like Heidi's. They'll still rise when they're in the Dutch oven, and they'll fill in. So you got these pinwheels like that, just like you always see regular cinnamon rolls. And these will be denser than what you're used to. but it's a little bit like making upside down cake because you're putting all the sugar in the bottom. And so when you take them out, they'll have sugar and stuff on the bottom, and you want to flip them over. And there'll still be stuff in the bottom of the pan. Scoop it out, pour it on top. And if you feel like being crazy, you can take stuff like frosting and things with you. You can take a can of frosting. Just depends on what you want to do, how far from civilization you are. Okay, so we're going to take our raisins and our nuts and our cinnamon rolls and our butter, and we're going back outside. Okay. Don't know that these are quite ready yet.
Did it go out?
Yeah, it did.
Never did that.
Yeah, it did. It went out.
I didn't get it.
I'll show you how that works. Set this back up against there and put some stuff in the way. So
Yeah, the wings
could have
look
blown
bad.
it out. Yeah,
it's kind of odd, but it's because. Okay, so the gentlemen are watching the fire. So, while we're waiting for that to go, which it looks like it's doing a little better than it was. Oh well, James going to torch the building, that's fine. The first one on the sheet here is the unyeasted Dutch rye bread, which was the first stuff you had to eat. And basically it's, we got more water in there, that's good. This dough will rise just a little bit because it expands as the grains take up the moisture. It's not really like it ferments a little bit, but not much. Like a sourdough is more like a fermented bread, where you've got the natural yeast kind of happening over a period of time. And James was asking about different types of flour. This uses rye meal, which is really just another word for flour. It's really gritty. And I looked all over for rye meal, and at Good Foods, the bin that's got rye meal in it is labeled pumpernickel flour. Go figure. And in little letters it says rye meal or rye flour or something like that. But you take 4 cups of that, and I'll show you what the flour looks like here. It's not that nice, fine, white stuff. This is like sand.
I like that. I like it to be like more nut.
Yeah. This has got all of the grain in it. They haven't really filtered this out at all. It's just like chopped. So we put the rye meal, and then you put in 1.5 teaspoons of salt and my 1/4 cup of wheat bran. Are you seeing where I'm looking right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Wheat bran and a cup of cracked wheat. Now, have you ever made tabbouleh with bran? You know, you add the boiling water. That's basically what we're doing here. Okay, a cup of cracked wheat. And honey or molasses. Let's see here. Now this honey, I'll have you know, is honey from the mud workshop that we had on honey and bees. It's really yummy stuff. That much?
Do they have bees there?
No.
Oh, not yet.
Well,
We're hoping.
we have these.
Yeah.
They're not, they don't live
Right.
on land.
Right.
So they live somewhere else.
Right. Yes, that's right. Okay, I thought we had some oil in here, but I guess not. If you ever have to make anything with honey and you have to measure it out with a tablespoon, here's a trick. Pour a little bit of oil in your tablespoon first. You can pour it back in. Then put your honey in, because the honey will slide right out. If you don't do that, you'll be trying to get it out of there and stuff, and it'll be a pain in the butt. So, and this is full of water, good. And 3.5 to 3 to 3 1/4 cup boiling water. This is the same way you do bulgur. That's a little more than 3. Let's see. Just pour it in. And I'm going to put the honey in afterwards, so that after I put the boiling water in, so that it gets mixed in. Otherwise, it's just going to turn into a blob somewhere in the dough, and you'll never see it.
What did you do?
I put the water in first, and then put the honey in so that it mixes in. So what happens is this boiling water cooks to a certain extent the grains. And you can add more flour, and what we're just going to do is let this kind of turn into a ball, more or less. And it's just thick like that, and it's hot. And once you might need to add more flour. It depends what kind of grains you've got and stuff like that. And you form it into a ball. And this is hot. Like that. And you're done for a day. You put a tea towel over it and you let it sit till tomorrow. And you can see what the directions are. Let's see, let sit overnight. You can add more flour the next morning if you need to. You put it in a baking pan, and that's enough for just one large baking pan. And you cover the baking pan, I just use foil, and put it in your oven, and you put a pan of water underneath it so it steams. And what I found is that these grains are slightly acidic. So if the foil touches the top of the bread, it'll go through. It'll eat through the aluminum. So yeah. So you want to have enough space between that, or just kind of check and make sure it's nice and flat.
You want to cover your pan tightly then?
Pretty tightly, yeah. Now they make something that's called a Pullman pan, which is designed just for this type of bread. And it's a 4x4 pan, and it's long and skinny, and it has a slide-on metal lid. And if you get this kind of bread at the store, you'll notice that there's small loaves like that, and they're usually used for hors d'oeuvres, which is kind of what we were doing. And you just slice that up into pieces, and you're done. And that pan is designed just for this.
You can also use a regular.
You can use a regular, yeah, metal or glass pan, yeah. So that's it for that. How are we doing out there? Is it working? Yeah, did it need a lot of doctoring? No, okay. Well, let's go give it another shot then. Ah, magnifique. It's beautiful. Perfectamente. And somebody thought about the Gray Jays.
Yes.
So we were talking about lining the pan. So we're just gonna.
So the foil in there means you don't have to put any butter or something in the pan to preserve, to keep things from sticking? Is that right?
Well, not quite. It kind of means that you don't have to scrub the pan as much, but you probably will get some sugar in it. It doesn't have to do with seasoning because the pan is seasoned. Just because a pan is seasoned doesn't mean it's non-stick. Okay, so take our handy dandy tongs. We stop burning down the spool. And these are going really strong. In colder climates, if you're camping and it's really cold out, hello.
I'm rescuing it from the ashes.
Oh, that's, oh, I see.
They were blowing
Hey, a
into it.
little ash adds to the spice, you know.
Yes.
We'll just go upwind. You might have to use more coals, you know, if it's really, really cold. So let's see here. I just don't want to leave a big old ash pile for these guys tomorrow when the kids come out to play. So you kind of take the coals and you space them around evenly underneath the Dutch oven. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8. Okay. Just like that. Okay, so that'll hot up. And take our butter and put that in there to warm. Keep that from flying away.
Definitely those are until you're right.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, these are perfect. They're beautiful. And really these tongs are more or less clean. But
Little dirt won't hurt.
you're gonna have, you know, I don't know, you've camped before. No.
Yeah, anywhere where the 5-second rule applies is true.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So do you melt all that butter?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, when it's cold out and coffee hasn't quite kicked in yet.
Plus you're camping and
Right.
hiking is exercise.
Well, I don't know that most people will hike up a hill with a Dutch oven on their back, but if they're horsebacking, they definitely will. Yeah. Yeah, if you're doing that. Okay, so Pat, you want to do me a favor?
Yeah, sure.
Go grab a spoon.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna work for everything.
Not everything. Lots of stuff, but not everything. Yeah, and then we're going to put about twice that much on top, and that'll give us about a 350 oven. You can use this as an oven and put another pan inside it. So you can, if you want to have, if you have a larger Dutch oven and you want to bake something in a pan, you can do that. Yeah, you could do a birthday cake. Yep, you could. Because it's so heavy, it just will transfer the heat really nicely. We've done like blueberry cobbler, apple cobbler in here. I did mushroom chicken, rice and, you know, the classic onion soup, Campbell's mushroom soup, chicken and rice thing.
Could you do like
Fabulous.
a skillet lasagna or something?
You could, yeah, yeah, yeah. If you look around, and I got this one at Sportsman's Warehouse, I think. But they don't have any anymore because they're going out of business.
Yeah, I'll be out of business.
Yep.
Choices.
This one will be good. Thank you.
Not the one on the reserve.
Not the one on reserve. They're gone.
Oh, well, excuse me. Yeah, you're right. There's something else out
There, yeah, there's Bob Ward's. You can buy Lodge online.
You can get them at REI, actually, too.
I have seen them at REI, but not recently.
Wholesale
You can
sports.
get cast iron at Ace.
The Army Navy surplus store.
Oh,
Yes. Yep. Now, most of these are not made in the United States. Lodge is the one that's made in the United States. All the other ones, of course, are made in
China.
You got it. Quick learners. Yeah.
Or you can go to secondhand stores.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's quite a lot of
And
them
if
in
you
the
if you find an old one that's rusted, scrub it down. I mean, you'll find something like that that's $5 and just grab it, because that is a deal.
Doesn't one always look like that?
You want one that's got the legs, so you can put the coals underneath. And a flatter lid is better than a curved lid.
When you buy them brand new, a lot of times they aren't seasoned, so they'll be
Yes.
more of a silvery, like a gunmetal.
But you can
silver
always
color.
season
And
it,
then
right?
you see,
Yeah.
right, you have to season.
Like you have to.
Yes.
That's the first step.
Yep. And usually there's an instruction thing with it that tells you how to do that.
That's like
Okay, so nuts, raisins, classic cinnamon rolls. Okay. So we'll stick these babies in here.
But do you have them touching or do you leave space?
You fill the pan as much as you can. They will expand, so you can leave some space in between. So just like that.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Here's squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. Stick your lid on. And then, again, you kind of space these around evenly.
I've never cooked with a Dutch oven.
It's this hard.
Yes. I mean,
Nope. Really great.
it's even like slightly less complicated than a whisper.
Yeah, my mom's got it.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was surprised.
What do we got? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
So, Anne, when you go camping, do you just bring a big cutting board to
Mhm.
film it on?
Well, I use the table in our van most of the time, but you can do it right on the ground if you've got a towel and some foil to just put it out on. So how many you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's probably plenty, but it's kind of cold. So I'm just going to stick a couple more on here with the wind.
Is there like a certain amount per
Per degree? There is. Yes, there actually is. And it depends on the size of the Dutch oven as to how hot you can get it. So there, in one of the little books I've got, there's a chart that just says, you know, if you want it 375, 340, 450. So you can control it pretty exactly. So we're going to let that sit for about half hour and they should come out. That'll be it. So we can go back in and see what Heidi's bread is doing.
I'm not done yet. Take what?
So anybody have any questions? Why would anybody bake bread when you can get it at the grocery store? That's a good question.
Do you ever use a bread maker?
I haven't used
I
one.
haven't either.
I talked to a friend who had one and he said he gave it away after the first month because he gained 10 pounds.
And it depends. I know my best friend got a really fancy bread maker for her wedding, but she lives in Santa Fe, which is right at, I think, 6,000 feet or 5,000 feet, and her bread maker doesn't work there. because of the difference in elevation
Wow.
so she's never once used it, and her mom gives her a guilt trip every time she talks to her on the phone. So, but I personally have never used one. So I don't know.
I don't know either. It's really more fun to make it with that. I just heard they like save a lot of time.
It does
Oh,
save
yeah.
a lot of time. You just throw it in there, and I
takes
think
all the fun out of
it needs it for you. And it makes, perfect little loaf. Huh? What'd you say?
But I don't think it would feel quite as homey.
No, and the thing is, like, you can do, like, we had some technical problems, so the other recipes will be online. But some of the other recipes that we were gonna send home with you, like one of the loaves it's braided and then you stick it in a loaf pan, so you can do so many beautiful things with bread if you're not using a bread maker, so definitely has its appeal. I don't know.
Well, we'll see how these
appeal.
turn out because I forgot to put the milk powder in.
Oh no.
Oh, yes. On the recipe for the Better Bisquick, you're supposed to put in 2 cups of milk powder. And I didn't put those in. So we'll see. They'll be kind of solid.
Buttermilk.
Well,
Never that much flour, that's how.
well, yeah, no, that's in the whole thing. Yeah.
In the 4 cups for flour though, wow.
Yeah.
Do you
But
think that will make it different?
yes,
Oh.
it will. It'll definitely make a difference. But I bet they get eaten.
Be less
I'm gonna
fatty.
stick that in here. That was only 3 cups, so leave that out. Use that for something else. But yeah, no, I've done recipes where I've completely left out the salt. You kind of go, you're putting it in the oven and you're going, oh. Done that before. I think everybody does that at some point. I hope everybody does that. I hope I'm not the only one.
Oh yeah.
Just don't put salt in sugar.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
My
No.
Cookies.
cheesecake. That could be really gross instead of sugar.
Ooh. Yeah.
My mom did
So,
that.
have you guys made bread before? Okay, good.
Oh,
All
I made a cannoli like once.
right. That counts. Yeah, all right. So those, we got everything else in there. That's good. So, you've got how
This
many minutes
one's-
on yours?
10 to 15.
10 to 15
It's supposed to be
minutes?
done right at 3.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think ours will probably, I'll go out there at 3 and lift that pot up and turn it on the coals so it kind of redistributes the heat out there, and then give it another 15, 20 minutes and it should be done.
So I'm just gonna share my favorite bread book with you guys. I found this at, I guess it was Hastings, but I bought the used old version. There's a new like 2005 edition, I want to say, but this one's from 1978. And this has more bread recipes in it than you could ever possibly want to have. But I'm trying to work my way through it. And all the recipes that we're sharing with you guys are from this book. So, and it has anything from, your yeast doughs to your whole wheat, rye, and then it goes into different like French breads, specifically French and Italian breads, peasant loaves, and then also like flatbreads, which then don't necessarily have yeast in them. So for example, naan, I don't know if you guys, naan is like I think it's Middle Eastern? Indian. I mean, it's all that whole part of it's similar to pita, but it doesn't have a pocket. And this recipe actually has like 2 cups of sauteed onions in it. And it's so fast, and we make it all the time, but I don't know, it's my favorite book so far. I don't know.
How much bread do you think you made?
I have made? Oh, I don't know. I'm a stay-at-home mom, so we make a lot of bread. Like so we usually make 2 loaves probably a week. And then I freeze one and eat one, and then we'll take the other one out. But then we also make, I made currant rolls last night. So other, fun stuff. It doesn't have to be bread. And then if you're really like into experimenting, there's also like you can make yeast-based pancakes and waffles, and those are some of our, like I have a yeast waffle recipe that I make a lot, and it just you let it rise for 15 minutes, and it's all whole wheat, and if anybody wants that recipe, I could share it too. It's really quick and delicious. So we cook a lot.
Yeah.
And Ivory loves it.
Yeah, this is, this right here is back in the back of the unyeasted. This is sort of the classic from about 30 years ago. And there's a lot, this is sort of the anniversary edition. Once upon a time, about 30 years ago, I had the original. But the only problem I have with this book is that there's no index in the back.
How do you find it?
I know. You have to go to the front and go through the whole list and look up what you're looking for. But these have got a lot of yeasted breads in them. They have pancakes, waffles, muffins, stuff like that. Sure.
It's
Yeah.
also kind of a spiritual book too. 'Cause
Yes.
in some recipes you have to only stir the mixture.
I think he's deleted that part.
Really?
Yeah, it's from the Tassajara Zen Buddhist monastery down in California. Guy's been cooking there forever.
Great book.
Yeah.
I want to learn how to braid with sticks. That's my new.
Yeah.
Because like hollow
But
bread.
there are millions of books on baking.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just you can turn into a cookbook junkie pretty easily.
Oh, I definitely do.
And don't do that. Go to the library.
Good too, in the library.
The library's got a great cooking
Oh, and-
section. Yeah, they've got really good books. So I wouldn't, and or book exchange.
Or the library shelf where they get rid of all the books downstairs.
Yes.
I've picked up a couple of cookbooks already.
Yeah.
And they kind of, this is just from kneading it, not
So all
quite
those can go
enough.
in there.
Like we're kind of split a little bit. But, and let me go.
So you just put water below it?
Yeah, and it just steams but it's not something you have to do.
So we probably want to set it up on its own
Well,
so we
this
can put
recipe, for some
things
reason,
in.
it calls for
that
it,
way.
but it's just to get, I think,
Yeah.
that nice crunchy crust on the
No.
outside. So,
Yeah, so all of that. That thing of bread is not mine.
Oh, yeah, I have
you get a nice
cheap one. Yeah.
hollow sound.
That's what it sounds like?
Yeah, it's almost like,
You didn't cut the bottom, right? Just the top?
yeah, just the top. So, yum.
Yep. You can add all kinds of stuff to bread.
Yeah, I think I am.
Cheese, nuts, meat.
That's how I found out about this.
Hey, is there any recipes in there for?
I had this experience not too long ago. I totally got a bum batch of yeast.
I've had that happen.
So, I was starting, I bake bread all the time, and I was starting to feel like a total failure. And I finally just went to the grocery store and bought a new jar of yeast, and everything worked beautifully. So,
Did you,
and I bought, did I what?
suggestion for like what kind of yeast is this?
I don't know if there's really best yeast.
You can buy bulk yeast at the
You can,
Good
which is the
Foods.
one that I had.
Ah.
I got a bad batch from.
Okay.
And I don't know if it was just because
But that's the
maybe.
first thing you do when you can see it growing, right? When you put it
Well,
in
with
water,
this
a little bit of
one-
honey,
With this, yeah. Well, with this one, you don't
can't
add
tell.
the yeast separate. Like you don't
Yeah.
set it in the water first. And so I was just ending up with these like itty bitty like awful loaves, and
So the water temperature though, isn't that how crucial is that? Because
it's
some recipes say hot water, some recipes say warm water, so they put it in bold letters, warm water. Well, warm, it can mean a lot of things. but-
I'd say it's probably always
It's-
around 100 and
But
yeah,
120 or what you said is considerably hotter than,
it's pretty
I mean, the
warm.
hot tub's 105. you
Yeah,
know,
it's pretty
so-
warm. But yeah, if you can't feel it, it's like the baby bubble test
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah, it's too
Like if you can't feel it on your skin, that's warm enough. So.
Yeah, or basically like about as hot as you can handle.
As you
on
can
your
make
baker.
your hand.
But you
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
You can tell
Yeah.
if it's too hot.
You want to keep in mind that if you're transferring hot water from this vessel to this vessel to this vessel,
gonna
it
cool
cools
off.
down. So having a thermometer like Heidi did is a good idea.
Yeah.
So would you say it's a good idea to get the bulk piece, or?
I've talked to lots of people since I had the bath edge that have had, haven't had that experience. So I'm not gonna say it's a bad idea to buy it.
It's so rare.
But yeah, I'm sure it doesn't happen very often. Like I was
Need to be kept like airtight.
yeah, and I put them in a jar.
Sure, yeah.
I put my yeast in a jar and I store it in the fridge.
Depending on how long it's been stored in the vault at room temperature.
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually supposed to be refrigerated,
That's what I
but it
know, yeah.
isn't
Yeah,
airtight at the good food store.
Right.
It's just in like a bin.
right, that's what I mean.
So I went back to buying the jars, which they actually don't have at the good food store. They have
The
both
steel
or
spoon.
packages.
Oh, I like the jar.
We go,
Yeah, I love the
No more
jar.
glass for the good food store. They're phasing it out
Oh, really?
because
Oh,
of
really?
thinking about recycling it and debt.
But I like
They're taking great
they're taking
strides
glass
this year.
out of there.
Don't sell anything.
Well, they won't have risen as much because milk isn't in there,
No.
but, ah, well.
No, it's not.
See, at least
That's
you
that
can
brilliant,
reuse the
beautiful
glass
problem
ones
again.
personally.
Okay, you gotta put the
I know,
bin
the
in the door.
cookie jars are pretty good size to read.
Yeah.
Glass is a really great resource, though. I mean, you can recycle it in an infinite amount of time. It's like,
And you can drive it. There's some grass recycling around here, but the closest I know of is in Phillipsburg.
yeah, I
It's like 2 hours away.
didn't have glass recycling either.
Those are looking pretty done.
And if you can check if your yeast is active, like if you put it in warm water with like
No, that's because the milk didn't
sugar,
get in.
like it should start bubbling. So,
A
which mine
little-
didn't.
A little chewier.
So, yeah. Well, actually,
Oh, I don't know if there's
Yeah.
much you can do, actually.
so. Ooh, those look yummy.
Are we supposed to be on?
No, she's coming to get it. She's gonna bring it in.
Just take one in for everybody and
Out of there with it. We doing good stuff on top. What does your skirt look like?
they smell great.
Thanks.
Ah! There you go. Yeah. And they're pretty hot. But if you grab a paper towel, see what they taste like without the milk. So, there you go. And that's hot sugar, so keep that in mind because that will burn. All the plastic spoons and stuff are from here.
What you say?
The measuring stuff is.
I don't know. Did you say
There we
something?
go. You ready? Sure. Here you go, Heidi.
Oh, thank you.
There we go.
Wow, that smells so good.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And one for Beth Ann, and there's a couple more out there, but
So I
Pat
bet people
and I will
just
scarf those down.
people really want to come camping with you, huh?
I know.
No, there's more out there. Yeah.
Camera go, yeah.
Oh, he needs one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ron needs one.
I'm butterfree.
Oh, that's right, you're vegan. That's right, I'm sorry. I put in a ton of butter.
Hey, you can eat mine.
Are they edible?
Does that mean there's one left?
No, it's for Beth Ann.
They're hot.
Oh, Pat, eat it. I'll get one of those ones.
I was gonna sample it.
I told you all the time.
I mean, I've eaten this before in camp, and I know what it's like. for
They're
breakfast.
hardy.
Good hearty breakfast wrap.
Yeah. Well, they'd be fluffier if the milk was in there, but, oh well.
They'd be what?
Fluffier. They wouldn't be as heavy. The milk has got protein in it. The milk that I use is a non-fat dry milk, just the powder, mix it in.
Where do you get it?
Co-op.
Okay, because I was looking for some of the bread recipes. They call for dried milk, and they don't have it at the good food store. They have
It's not powdered. Dry milk is different than powdered milk.
Yes.
yeah, it's like it's different. Like you have to blend it, and
You don't usually use it for drinking.
No.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Because there's
Okay,
no
interesting.
fat in
Dry
it.
milk different than powdered milk. I didn't know they were.
There's no, well, this stuff, there's no fat in it, so it stores because it's the fat
Right.
that goes, the
Non-fat
oils.
dry milk, powdered milk is what I always knew was powdered milk.
I know, it's that horrible tasting
there's-
Yeah, I
stuff.
would never use it for milk, but I
No.
use it in bread recipes.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
reason I'm wondering about this.
So the wheat germ has a half-life, right? When they grind the wheat, it's already losing some nutrition, so the good stores will have it in the fridge.
Yes, it is in the fridge. It's over near the mushrooms, and.
See, that's for at the good food store?
Yeah,
Or any health food store, they always have
Well,
it.
you want the wheat germ?
yeah,
Well, see,
Yep.
the yeast is over there too by
Yep.
the mushrooms, and it.
yep, and the salad dressings, that whole area.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming.
yeah, if the milk was in those, they'd be sweeter too.